works.
Hey guys, so this is Vanessa again, showing you Bio 245 videos, and we're going to go over muscles of the head and neck. So we're going to go over the names, functions, and locations, and hopefully do this in a nice period of time. So first things first, like I say all the time, if you know your skull and you know your regions, then you know this material, and it's going to be that much easier. So let's just kind of go from top to bottom. First off, we have, you'll notice on your list, it is called the frontal belly of the occipitofrontalis. So when we're talking about the occipitofrontalis, you know that the frontal region's in the front on your forehead and the occipital region is the back of your head. Okay? So this whole thing here, so from the front all the way to the back, where it's red, white, and then slightly red again on the back here, that's all the occipital frontalis. If we want to know about the frontal belly specifically, the frontal belly is just where there's actual muscle tissue, so we know that it's contractile. Remember, if it's just this white tissue, it's connective tissue, and that's usually dense regular connective tissue, which doesn't have any contractile properties, but the red is going to be muscle, so it has contractile properties. So they just call it a belly because that's where we have that muscle located. So there you go, frontal belly of the occipitofrontalis. Its function is to raise the eyebrows. Remember, whenever a muscle is performing its function, it's shortening. Okay, so remember, those sarcomeres shorten, the myofibro shortens, the muscle fiber shortens, the fascicle shortens, the whole muscle shortens. So if it shortens, it's pulling up your eyebrows. Okay, so there's your frontal belly of the occipitofrontalis. Next, we have the Orbicularis Oculi. So if you think about it, oculi usually means eye. So like you guys learned about the ocular lens when we talked about the microscope, referring to the eye. Here's your oculi, orbicularis, orbits, so it goes around. In the case of a round muscle, whenever you see a round muscle, it's usually indicating that it's usually going to perform like a sphincter. So it's going to, when it contracts, it's going to close. Okay. So whenever your orbicularis oculi is activated, you close your eye. And if you close your eye really tight, you start to really see that like even the corners of your eyelid kind of come in on like closer to each other. Okay, and it puckers the skin around there. Moving on, we have the Zygomaticus. So the Zygomaticus, based on the name, starts at the zygomatic bone, okay, your cheekbone, right? The Zygomaticus starts at that cheekbone and it goes down to the corner of the mouth. See that there? So if that muscle were to shorten, it physically pulls the corner of the mouth towards the zygomatic bone. So here's my zygomatic bone, here's the corner of my mouth. If that muscle shortens, it's going to help me smile. Okay, that's kind of a scary, non-natural smile, but there, it helps you smile. Okay, so that's your Zygomaticus. Moving on over, oh, and you'll notice in a lot of books that there's a Zygomaticus major and the Zygomaticus minor. You don't need to worry about that, just know Zygomaticus and you'll be okay. Okay. Moving on, we have the levator labii superioris. The levator labii superioris, if you break up the name, levator is coming from elevate, so in other words, raising. Labii comes from lip. So whenever you see labia or labii, it's just referring to your lips in general, or a lip shape. Superioris, because it is superior to the labii, to the lips. Okay. So in this case, it's starting up here at the nose and extending down the side of the nose and ultimately to the top of the lip. Here is your levator labii superioris. Okay. Its function, when it shortens, is going to be to make a snarly face, just like that, or like I can't do that. Anyway, it's like a snarly face. Or some people say like the Napoleon Dynamite face. Like that. Okay, so it's going to raise your upper lip. Moving on to just the actual round muscle that surrounds the lip. You can see that there's this ring of muscle that surrounds the lip. So again, we have the orbicularis thing because it orbits it, it goes around it, but in this case, since it's the oral region, it's the oris. So orbicularis oris. Orbicularis oris. So it goes around the lips. And like I said, whenever you see a round muscle like that, it performs like a sphincter. So when it contracts, it's squishing your lips together and making a kissy face. Okay, there's your kissy face. Next, we have the depressor anguli oris. So if it's depressor, it's depressing something or lowering it, like levator elevates it, brings it up. Depressor is going to bring something down. Depressor anguli, the muscle's kind of at an angle. Oris, it's attached to the mouth somewhere. So in this case, here is our depressor anguli oris right here. So it starts at the lip and kind of pulls it down this way. So if we wanted to know our function, just look at where it starts and where it ends. The hard part is it's the bone that it's attached to, so it's going to move the fleshy part, the lip. So kind of like represses your lip, makes a sad face, makes a sad frowny face, okay? Okay, let's talk about more stuff around the mouth. If we turn our head here, we're deep. Remember, there's a superficial side and there's a deep side. So we've cut off a lot of the muscles that are on the face and we're revealing deep stuff. So in this case, this is our buccinator. Our buccinator. So if you recall the buccal region is your chin, or your chin, your cheek, your cheek. So if you peel away all those muscles deep in your cheek, you'll see the buccinator, and you can see that it has this grain that runs in a singular direction all the way across like this towards your mouth. What it does is it kind of clamps the insides of your cheeks to your teeth. And what it looks like when it's activated, if you're looking externally, is like that. So it's putting the inside of my cheek to my teeth. This helps keep food around my tongue. So it's helpful with eating. Very helpful. Other stuff that's helpful with eating is a little more superficial. We have the masseter. The masseter actually starts here at the bottom of the jaw. It comes up here and it kind of tucks underneath that zygomatic bone. So there you go, right there. The masseter, if you want to imagine what it's doing, since this bone is movable, you guys know the mandible is movable, and obviously the rest of the skull is not movable. When that muscle shortens or contracts, it's going to pull up the mandible, so it's elevating the mandible. So it helps with chewing. Okay. The other muscle that helps with chewing is on this side. Again, it's deep, very deep. This muscle that covers the temporal bone is called the temporalis, so that makes it pretty easy, right? And it starts up here on the temporal bone, and you can even see here where that attachment comes down onto the mandible. Well, maybe you can't, it's a little bit hypersaturated. There you go. So you can see this gray part here coming down onto the mandible, that's from your temporalis. So when the temporalis contracts, it's pulling up your jaw or elevating your jaw. So again, helping with chewing. So sometimes you can see, if you chew, you can see a little bit that my temple is moving, and you'll see that like when you watch football and you see like the big headphones on their head when they're chewing gum or something, the headphones like bob out like that. That's from the temporalis going to work. All right, I believe that is the face. So next is the neck. So we have two muscles of the neck that you gotta know, so you don't have to know any of this throat stuff or any of that. Lucky you. First off, we have the sternocleidomastoid. So if you know your skeleton, again, you'll know where to find this. The mastoid process is back here. Sterno is coming from sternum, and then cleido coming from clavicle. There's actually an additional head that comes down and attaches onto the clavicle. But this is your sternocleidomastoid, okay? Now when the sternocleidomastoid contracts, you can imagine that your sternum is not very movable, so when that muscle shortens, it's going to pull this side of your head that direction. So it's going to help with turning your head especially down, okay? So that's your sternocleidomastoid at work. There you go, sternocleidomastoid. The other muscle of the neck that you can see very nicely is going to be the platysma. The platysma you will only really be able to see on these kinds of models. So it has the green base and nice and big, and you can see some of the muscles of like the shoulder and stuff. So go to this guy when you want to see the platysma. But the platysma is this sheet of muscle, very superficial. It actually only really attaches to the skin. Excuse me. So it attaches to the skin of your neck and also to the skin along the bottom of your jaw, just a little bit. So, and you can see here that it's very superficial. It actually covers your sternocleidomastoid here. So platysma right there. And when you activate your platysma or shorten your platysma, I do this a lot when I'm being emphatic, but it actually, like, you can see there's my platysma right there. But it also depresses the skin on my jaw. So that's me just activating my platysma. So you can see my jaw, the lip around my jaw is depressed, and also it makes my skin on my neck stand out. Okay, so that's the platysma at work. Okay, so those are the muscles of the head and neck. Go be sure to study those. Make sure that you know them on every model. Every model is pretty similar, so you don't have to worry about them being super different from each other, except for this guy who's the only one who has platysma. All right, happy studying.